So how long have you had Janeway now?
So in March, in this coming March, it'll be 3 years.
And has it gone how you expected? Have there been surprises? Have there been glitches along the way? Have you at any point regretted getting her? Tell me a little bit about your feelings 3 years into this journey.
I have never regretted getting her, ever. I'm super happy with her. And I think that's thanks to all of the like preparatory work I did, the year before I got her. I'm not saying it should take another person a year to do research. It took me a year to feel confident that I could properly take care of a snake and have the relationship I wanted. I think the target training and the behavioral observation and all the enrichment I do for her has really helped me enjoy her. Like watching her play or exercise in the play tent and use all the stuff I give her is so rewarding. And setting up her tank in a way that fills the space and I can see her. I love seeing her use the things I put in there for her. And I've noticed that she doesn't go the easiest route. Like she doesn't go A to B. She'll like climb through three things to end up at the place. So I know she likes to challenge herself physically. And so this is a 75 gallon. So it's 4 feet long and 18 inches deep. And she's probably a little over 3 feet. She can stretch out completely and not reach end to end. But I like her to look small in her tank, and she's not looking small anymore. So I have purchased a bigger tank from Apex Cages, I think they're called now, or Apex Reptiles. Apex Cages, I think. That's going to be a lot bigger. It's going to be 6 foot long and 4 feet deep and 2 feet tall. And she will use every single inch of space I give her. So I'm really looking forward to seeing her use that extra space. So, and I think that's part of the progression of like, what more can I do? I'm always thinking, what more can I do? What's the next level? What am I missing? And using her as my guide. What is she liking to do? How is she spending her time? The thing I think I maybe didn't expect was to have to keep up with her. Like I did create a monster. I partially blame you. We created a monster of like, I have to keep up with her. She gets bored. And I can tell she gets bored. And it's like, okay, well, what new thing can I add? What new, so like she's bored of the play tent, like I have this like hexagon one for a puppy play tent I can zip. So she'll climb in and she'll want to climb back out. And so I'm like, she's bored. So then I got her, cat tunnels so that she can go longer distances, or different, setups. The cat tunnels, I can't zip tie the zippers together, so I don't like leaving her overnight in those. And they are a little bit of a pain with little kids because I go to set them up and they think they can crawl through them and stuff. And so those don't come out as often, but if I have the time and the kids are cooperating, I do pull out the cat tunnels for her. So I'm always thinking like, what more can I do for her? I also had like this personal, like, why am I training situation? Like, why am I target training? Is it for me or is it for her? And that caused me to not stop target training, but really shift to letting her forage in her tent more, because I saw that she really enjoyed the foraging and wanting her to express natural behaviors, and seeing her problem solve and find out where the mouse is or the chick, was really engaging for me to just sit and watch her do it. So I still, and you and I talked about this of like, I don't know, like, why do I train? Like, why do I do this? So I still use targets. I just, I got my targets from Danielle Anise, and she can make them on the little, accordion stick that pulls out, which is really nice. And she also made me some, just the round disc. So she'll forage in her tent without me there, but I still put the prey item on the target. So she's still target training, but foraging more. And I've been able to really hide the prey items and really see her use her mind. And then I recently, maybe in the last year, I forget. Yeah, earlier this year, she had gone into like just a really quiet period of not wanting to shift out for a few months over the last winter. And I don't know if she's going to do it again this winter. And because I had gone bioactive, I needed to like address the soil. And so I needed her to come out. And so you had told me, well, why don't you try targeting her out? And I had never had to do that in the whole time I had her because she shift trained to bring herself out regularly enough that it was almost every day. So I targeted her out, and that was the first time I'd ever had to do it in, 2.5 years or something. So that was interesting and fun, and like, oh, I can do this, and like her targeting has a purpose, and like, so then we got to talking about why do I target and what do I want to do. So then to I think challenge myself with the targeting. And with your advice, we've decided to teach her different targets. So like a different target needs a different food item. So she has a blue target for mouse, a green target for rats, and like a purple target for quail. And so this past year, I've been having fun teaching her all those targets or expanding her target colors to different prey. And I kind of envision in the future, like doing preference testing, right? So if I show her a blue and a green, which is she going to prefer to go to kind of tell me what's her preferred prey item. I kind of think it's quail because she goes berserk whenever I offer her a quail, but who knows? That's my hypothesis anyway. But the other one is to maybe do like target discrimination. So show her a red target, which she's never seen, and see if she will still go to the target she does know, whether it's blue, green, or purple. So we're working up to that. And so that keeps me really engaged with the behavior training, along with seeing her forage. So now I feel like it is more of a 50-50 where she gets to do what she wants and I get kind of like more of the like interesting, like learning behavior from her that I really enjoy.
And even, well, you've used it at least once for a practical purpose, the targeting and the shifting. Even with the targeting, it's a cognitive exercise, right? It can be enriching in itself. It's mentally and physically stimulating for her to engage in it. And I think combining it with foraging exercises for a species like the corn snake, who are active hunters and active foragers, is just perfect.
Another surprising thing I think is it was really intimidating to think about going bioactive. And I know we talked about it in our Patreon group quite a bit because several of the members have bioactive tanks. So it was a long decision process. Like I said, it wasn't until we were in this house, and that was 2021, like end of 2021, that I thought, okay, I'll try bioactive. Since I'm moving the tank and setting her up again, then I can maybe switch the soil out. And I started naturalistic first and then progressed to having to care for isopods because having an aquarium background, those are very complex systems to maintain well. So I was a little intimidated of like, can I do it for a snake? But I really enjoy the bioactive. Like I really enjoy the little isopods and having and taking care of them. And it's just like a new level of enjoyment I have with her tank. So like, aside from Janeway being amazing, I also really enjoy caring for the tank now because there's other living things that are also now my pets that I feed and water and take care of. So
Have you noticed any behavioral differences with Janeway herself from the semi-naturalistic to the bioactive, or is that more something you feel like has just been for you?
That's a good question. In the beginning, it was for me to challenge myself and I wanted natural plants in the tank with her, but she burrows a lot more now that she has natural soil. She burrows a ton, and I hadn't seen her. She'd used hides and she had cocoa block, which, okay, admittedly, not super great to burrow in potentially. And I know you don't have to go bioactive to provide substrates they can burrow in. But it's so fun to see her burrow and her little head pop out of different places. So I'm like, oh, she has a new tunnel, you know? And I don't know, you can maybe see one here. I don't know if you can pick that up, but like you can see her tunnels. And it's just been really fun. And again, get to take care of plants. I have house plants all over. So I like taking care of things, I guess. So I like taking care of her plants, of the isopods, of her, but it's still a mix. Like it's bioactive, but I still have like shelves and plastic hides.
I'll be interested to see her behavior when she goes into that massive enclosure. What I have noticed with some snakes here is they want out a lot and they use exercise spaces a lot. And then I give them a very large enclosure comparative to their size. And then they seem not to want to come out. They almost seem like content with that space that they have without wanting to come out. Not all, like TC, it wouldn't matter what size enclosure he had, he's going to want to come out. But some snakes that I've observed, once you give them that massive size difference between their body and their habitat, they're pretty content to just stay in there and utilize that, at least until they grow even more or they get bored now with that space, and then they'll start wanting to come out again.
Yes, yeah. And I think that'll be okay, because I'll make sure that there's multiple water, so I can always at least access some water. I'll target her and let her forage in her own tank and stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see what it does. I'm really looking forward to seeing her like small in the environment and like all the different hides and things I can do for her. And like her tank has gone through so many different iterations that I think they're like never really done. You like switch things out, or you see what they're using or not using, or you see a cute thing on Etsy and you have to get it for them. So in an ideal world, I'd have a way for her to like go into like a catio outside or something. So like if weather permitted, she could get natural sunlight and smell the air and things like that. Like I'd love for her to feel the breeze. I have put her tent out on the deck and let her be in that tent. But again, it's very much like when I can do it, or, when I can sit there and watch her and stuff like that. So I would that's in an ideal world. The ultimate goal would be that I have a little panel I can open and she can let herself out if she wants.
That
So,
would be
well,
neat.
I'll get there one day.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have a vision for the future and you're not done, that you
No,
have
I'm
things
not
that you
done.
could see progressing as you go, or transitioning or changing as you go. And it seems like you let Janeway tell you when she needs a change.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. And
what
she's
do you notice about her behavior that tells you, oh, maybe I need to add something new to her tank, or maybe I need to give her a different exercise space or change something we're doing? Because you've mentioned that you notice she's bored. What does that look like, and how do you know that?
Yeah, so I noticed she's bored with certain things when she doesn't want to go there anymore. Where they used to be very interesting to her and very engaging with her. But then she doesn't want to be in that space anymore. She doesn't want to go in her shift tote. She doesn't want to go into her play tent. I'll put her there, or she'll put herself there and then immediately leave and then not want to go back. Like they do, like she might leave and come back, but no, she'll leave and want to just leave. And I know she's always like, here she comes to get me. You know what I mean? Because in ideal world, I have seen her try sneak away off the tank another way that isn't the branch, you know? So I know she's like, well, what is on this side? What's behind the tank? What's all, but it's not safe for her to go down any other way. And I don't want to lose her. I mean, she has made it all the way down to the underneath this stand when I have forgotten, I've gotten distracted by the kids, forgotten that I opened it, and half an hour later had a heart attack and found her under this stand. So thankfully the kids had kicked toys under there, so she was very much engaged in like what is under there. So I didn't lose her, thank God, but I had a total panic attack. So she can get down safely, but it's not safe in terms of like I can lose her or she can get stuck or something. So
And hasn't she been on the couch once or
yeah,
something? Was that an organized thing or an accident?
that was an accident. She was on the couch once. It was one of those times when she didn't want to go back in her tank, so she turned around and climbed on me. And so I like went and sat on the couch with her, and then she like went down the couch. Like I had to start pulling cushions out. She was like a little couch corn for a second. But yeah, she was like, "Oh, what's this?" And then down she went, you know. Yeah, she
That's
keeps me
so
on my
funny.
toes. She definitely keeps me on her toes. And so she's always having me think like, okay, I have to put her, like the only other space I have to offer her is the play tent. So then how do I keep it engaging for her? You know, so that was also part of letting her forage in there. So she knew that's where she can get
Mhm.
food, so that it could keep her a little more engaged, and then always just like changing things out. Like all of this here are like extra enrichment that I switch out. And thankfully with kids and just a household, you get cardboard boxes all the time. So I throw in new boxes, new things as often as I can. Um,
Do you
and
ever
then like
use scent enrichment or you just the strange scents on the different boxes and where they come from seems enough?
that seems enough, but I have like put like banana peels in there or like apple skin, stuff like that, or vanilla. Um, that does keep her, you know, engaged, but not long enough. You would think, oh, that'll keep her engaged for hours. It was like 5 minutes and she's off. Like, okay, yeah, I can't eat it, so I'm moving. So she really challenges me in how to keep her enriched because she's now used to being enriched. So I need to then keep up with her of what she's asking for.
So when environmental stimulation is the norm, then you have to keep ahead of her with enrichment.
Yeah, I
And
do.
how old
I
is
think
she
that,
now?
and she is, so she was born in 2019, July 2019, July 14th, 2019. So this
Four and a
past
half.
year, she turned 4. Yeah, 4.5.
So she's going on
Um,
5.
she's going on 5. And I think the traveling helps keep her too. Like when she's in the tent at families members' houses, she's smelling and scenting and up and out, you know. She doesn't hide very much when she's, you know, in travel snake mode.
That's funny. And how does your family interact with her if they do on these visits?
They do interact with her. I kind of manage the interactions because she does not like to be held. So I guess I manage human expectations. Like you will not grab her. We will not reach in for her. If she climbs on you, you are a tree, you know, kind of thing. And I think everyone's really respectful of how I like to manage her, where it's choice based on her part. She chooses how and when she interacts with us. And if she doesn't want to interact with us, I don't force her to. They respect that. I mean, they know how I am. They know that I went full, you know, behavior and choice with my dogs. And my kids grew up around dogs that were like recovering aggressive. You know what I mean? Like, so they knew to not, and so I always they could not just jump on the dog either. They have to be respectful of the animal space and what they're telling you. And with dogs, it can be subtle or not subtle. You know, with my dog, it could be a side eye, and that's the only warning you're gonna get is the side eye, you know. and the next thing is she's gonna bite. So letting that, so my kids knew from early on that we don't touch Janeway unless she chooses it. I do let them, like if she's on her tree bench and I'm shifting her, they get to see her, and then they can touch with one finger, you know, like one time down, and then I can put her back. But I think what I really liked too, I don't know if maybe some not family members, but people like friends, extended friends that come visit. It does seem weird to them that I don't just pull her out to show them. You know, because I'm like, oh, well, she's hiding right now. Like, because they're like, oh, where's your snake? And I'm like, well, this is her tank. But they don't see her for whatever reason at that moment. They're like, oh, where is she? I'm like, oh, hiding somewhere. And she's like, well, can I see her? And I'm like, well, when she comes out, I don't know when that's going to be, but that I don't just open the tank, root around for her and pull her out. That is different. Some people are like, oh, okay. But I tell them, like, I don't force myself on her. I wouldn't force you into any situation you didn't want to be in either. So,
And that's a good lesson. And it's why I get people that ask me, why don't you do like show us all your snakes, or do like snake room tours? And I can give you a tour of my snake room, but you might not see every snake, you know, because the same thing, if I'm not going to reach in and take a snake out just to show it to you. And I don't do that if we get visitors or anything like that either. If the snake comes out on their own, and usually one or two will, like TC, he was at the door right before we started our interview, and I opened it, and before I could even like grab him and get situated, he was already on the floor crawling around my legs. So, I mean, that's one thing. Okay, he came out. Yeah, I'll pick him up and you can hold him, you can touch him, but he's choosing to interact. And I'm not going to go and snatch snakes out. I wouldn't come to your house and snatch you out of bed in the middle of the night so that people could touch
right.
you. You know, how rude.
I know. And how stressful. And you know, my kids really enjoy having a snake. You know, they tell everyone we have a snake. Her name is Janeway. My daughter's taken her sheds to show and tell, and like they draw her at school and stuff. And in like family pictures, they'll draw an orange snake, you know, in like the family portrait that they'll draw. So it's really cute. And I think, and like, so my daughter or like friends will come, my daughters, you know, will have play dates because she's like 6 now, going on 7. And they'll say like, oh, I didn't know you could have a snake as a pet. Or my daughter will come back and say, oh, so and so said that I'm lying, that I don't have a snake because their mom said that snakes are wild animals and they're not pets. So I'm just sort of like, well, you don't, and not everyone has to believe you, like that's okay, but also, you know, you can let them know all the great things about Janeway that make her a great pet. You know, I think people don't realize snakes can be great pets, family members and family pets, and you can really enjoy them, as long as you have realistic expectations of them.
Right.
They are amazing pets.
And you do a great job, I think, of educating others based on the journey you've had with Janeway. And do you do that some over social media, correct?
Yeah,
I think through our conversations, it sounds like you have withdrawn from some social media interaction, but you do stay engaged, I know, with our group. So talk to me a little bit about experiences you've had with that.
yeah, so social media can be tricky. So like one of the reasons I started my Instagram was to try and have like positive snake content out, because when I, as a new snake owner, or before I even had a snake, went looking for snake content, it was all either like fear-based, like snakes are scary and run away, or it was very like morph driven and breeder driven, um and not, I didn't see a lot of like the positive pet keeping side of snakes. There are really good accounts out there that have great pet, you know, snake accounts and behavior accounts. So I kind of just wanted to be like, this is, document my journey with her, which I'm really glad I have done, because I can look back and not just see really cute baby pictures and horrible first tanks, and like cringe, but just our progression with her. But I really wanted to just put out positive snake content, but like not, I don't engage negatively with people. So I just put out my like training videos, or like, here's Janeway shifting, or here she is deciding, or, just document, the way I keep her and my life with her. I have had negative comments. Like, I have had people tell me she's going to fall and break her back, right? Or I have had people tell me I can't feed her quail, or I can't feed her rats because I'm going to kill her, or she's going to get too fat, or something like that. And I'm like, have you looked at nutritional composition of these different items? You know what I mean? And like, I'm an advocate for varied diet, because that's what they have in the wild. And so I'm trying to give her as much wild experience as I can, knowing that she's a captive animal, and there are constraints within that. So if I get negative feedback, I just block them. I had like the nastiest one I have had on Instagram was someone commented, I think it was like one of my training videos, and they commented like, why bother? Like, it was like, why do you bother doing that? A good snake is a dead snake, something like that. And it's so nasty, like, just keep it moving. So I blocked that person, but then I did feel the need to like post like, these are just not okay. And like, you wouldn't tell someone to shoot their dog, like, so snakes are valuable pets. And just because you don't see snakes as a pet, she's still my pet. And I love her as a pet and family member. So those are just not okay comments. So I just block people like that. And then Facebook groups are real touchy. That's I think a lot of where people pick sides, and they are part of one group or not a part of a group based on keeping styles, based on lighting you provide, based on feed you provide. Like, it gets really like divisional very quickly in Facebook groups. So I tried some members of groups where I'm a member of Facebook reptile groups that are more open-minded and more progression-minded, where like we all start somewhere, but we all are progressing at our own pace, at our own time scale, for our own, that we're comfortable with. But the goal is to always progress, always push yourself, and you're having the animal's well-being in mind. So those are the groups I'm a part of, because you can have open dialogue about this or that. And then if someone joins at a certain level, they're not bashed. And I'm not bashed because I provide UVB to an male animal, where people are like, you're going to kill her, she's going to get cancer. And like, well, she
has
doesn't.
the choice not to use it.
She has a choice not to use it. She openly uses it. She not only uses it, she uses it off the ground. She will bask off the ground at the highest point she can get to. And it's a fairly low UVB. I mean, she's not a bearded dragon. I'm not trying for a UVB of 4.0. I'm obviously not. So it's all within reason. And to the best of my ability. And if I don't feel comfortable doing it, I don't do it, kind of thing. So yeah, social media is really funny and tricky. And it takes energy. So over the summer, when I had some family stuff going on, I stopped posting because it was just too much, with everything I have going on. But interestingly, the people that do follow me, several of them reached out to me like, you stopped posting. Are you okay? What's going on? Is everything okay with Janeway? Is she alive? Kind of thing. And so I was like, she's fine. It's just me, going through life. Life is lifing right now. And I don't have the mental space to post. You know, I'm still taking care of her. She was still shifting out. She was still a source of joy for me during a really hard time. Um, but it was interesting that then it can also, social media can obviously be a really positive place where keepers can really help each other. And I like exposing people to target training and enrichment, because I get genuine, you know, respectful question of, why do you target train? Why does she shift out? Why is she in a play tent? Some people think they see a post of her in a play tent, they think she lives in a tent. And I'm like, she probably could live in a tent, but she doesn't live in a tent. So it's fun answering those types of questions and like directing them to you and Liam and Dylan and saying like, here are the people, like I didn't come up with it. You know, there's a whole group of like-minded keepers that we're all trying to, you know, increase welfare and increase our own keeping abilities. So it's nice. I think it can be positive. And then I try not to engage with the negative stuff as much as possible.
I think that's a good rule of thumb, because it really usually, if it's just straight up negative,
Yeah.
straight up nasty, just straight up insults, there's really no point in engaging, because that person isn't open to engaging with you in an educational or meaningful way.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever had to take Janeway to the veterinarian, or had any medical or physical health concerns with her in the years that you've had her, or how are things going on that front?
That's a good question. I have not had to take her to the vet for any medical issue. Knock on wood. She's a very healthy snake. But I do, you know, I do stress, like if she starts not coming out, if she starts not unburrowing herself, like I'm like, what's going on? What is she doing? Um, there have been times, especially last winter, when she didn't want to come out for 3 months, that I was like ready to take her somewhere. But everyone in your group and the other, you know, advancing husbandry groups were like, it's winter. She's 4 now. You know, she's 3 now. She's like getting into adolescence / sub-adulthood. So expect some of these changes. Then I start worrying about, oh my God, is she just gonna lay eggs now? And like, oh, like, is she gonna get egg bound? But I'm like, okay, let me not stress too much. But I do have a vet in mind if I have to take her. And I think doing like a preemptive before she gets sick visit is something I've been putting off, because it's stressful to think about taking her somewhere she can catch something. But I might just be over worrying, you know? But
If
because
it's
she's
a
very
good,
healthy.
reputable reptile veterinarian, they are going to disinfect and sanitize so well between reptiles using the exam room that it's not really that big of a concern. But you can ask, like, hey, are there other reptiles coming on my same appointment day, and what species are those, and is there any way that I could book an appointment, since this is a wellness check only and not an emergency, on a day when like there's only going to be cats and dogs there or something, you know, if
Yeah.
you're worried about it. I can tell you that just like getting her used to the traveling and the visiting family and the shifting out and going in her playpen, getting them used to the vet is a similar procedure. And TC has been to the vet so many times. Like it, so he went to the vet for a recheck just yesterday, and I opened his enclosure like normal. He came out. I don't even keep his carrier, just stays in my cargo van. So I carry him out and put him in his carrier, and it sits right between the passenger and the driver's seat. And there's hides and stuff in there, but he doesn't use them. He sits right at the door, which is clear for him to see, and he watches out and looks around while we're driving. Like he looks straight out the windshield, or he looks at me or looks at the passenger while we're driving. And then on the way home, because he's usually tired by then, he'll sit as close to me up against the transport wall as he can. So he's like right next to me right here, but he's in his carrier and I'm driving. And when we're at the vet, they allow him to free roam the room. He gets to climb on things after his appointment. They feed him, so he has a positive experience while he's at the vet. And then the office manager usually lets him sit on her desk while we're looking at other animals and things. And so to him now, that's just so normal that he's like, whatever. It's just another
Yeah.
thing that we do.
I'm sure he's a favorite. I mean,
He is their favorite. They have
yeah,
told me TC's our favorite snake.
I mean, 100%,
Okay.
100%. He's like, famous. He's internet famous for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
So,
right. And I was looking, the thing is too, like I scope websites out and some of them can be so outdated for reptile information. So I'm just like,
and you can be upfront with the vet and say, look, nothing's wrong with my snake. And if we don't even do a complete wellness exam, I'm fine with that. We want it to be a positive visit. I just want him to get her used to taking a trip to the vet, seeing an exam room, seeing you guys, and then we leave. I would say I'm happy to pay for an exam if we do no more than that.
yeah,
And for fear-free vets, that won't be something unusual. They call them victory visits, where they just let you bring your animal to visit and they don't actually do anything to them. And it's just to start getting the animal used to the vet and have them have a positive, non-stressful experience there.
yeah, I should look again because maybe, like the fear-free certified vets are like increasing in number, I feel. So like last time I checked, there wasn't one for reptiles certified that would see a reptile, but maybe that has changed. But yeah, I would love to go to one of those. But yeah, I need to be a little more proactive of taking her to her wellness and especially now that things have calmed down and we're settled, to just have her get checked out. And I do weigh her regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I check her over regularly as well, make sure nothing, even when she's just crawling around, I make sure I look at her. And then when she shifts out or in, I look at her really closely and make sure everything looks okay, nothing looks different. One time I was like, oh my God, what's that? And it was like, I don't know, some sphagnum moss, and I'm like, oh God, thank God. I thought something was like falling out of her. So yeah, no, I do need to do it, but she's really healthy. And I couldn't be happier with her. And I hope,
Good.
I have her for 20 years.
I hope so too. I hope that you guys continue this amazing journey that you're on. You're setting an excellent example, and just the picture, it's just picture perfect, you and Janeway, and how much you celebrate your snake, how much you enjoy her as family. And the fact that you share that with the world is wonderful, because we don't get enough of that amongst reptile people and snake people in particular. And so
Yeah.
many times people don't understand how snakes are family and how someone could love one so much and care for them and interact with them in the way that you do and that I do. And it's just a great example to set. And so I do appreciate you having the Instagram account and being out there on social media when you feel up to it. And you and Janeway, I'm just so pleased that this has all been this amazing journey and things are working out.
Thank you. I'm really thankful I met you early on in my snake, learning period, because I think it would have, like, you answered so many questions that I had of like, how can I do this well, that were stressing me and really keeping me from getting a snake, because I couldn't figure out having learned everything I did with my dogs, of like, how do I do this without um, forcing her, because a lot of the issues my dogs had was because of force.
Mm-hmm.
So you answered so many of the things that were like, how do I manage this situation, that, and like, something as simple as hides with bottoms,
Right.
target training, like things that as a new keeper you don't think are available as tools. They're really useful tools. And it's interesting how some of the most open people to the way I keep Janeway, and many of us in your group keep snakes, the ones that are most open to it are people that don't have snakes. A lot of the pushback I feel like I get and other people get are from other snake keepers. So
I
that's
see that as
interesting.
well because other animal trainers, other animal behaviorists, uh, zookeepers who don't work with reptiles or snakes or own them are very supportive of the work that I do with snakes and reptiles and are watching the videos and learning from them and are just also aren't shocked, that snakes are able to learn these things. Those are animal people, you know, they're not specific species people and they're not necessarily snake people or reptile people. Those are animal trainers, animal behaviorists, zookeepers. They're so open and supportive of the work I do that the actual reptile keepers and snake keepers are the ones that I find are the most negative and push back the most and are just, quite frankly, the people that aren't the most pleasant to interact with an exception of a few who we already work with and interact with.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's a shame because one, it causes divisions where I don't think there needs to be really. And then two, people feel like they have to pick a side, and that limits growth and that limits open conversation and and ultimately limits what we provide for snakes and how snakes live among us, So yeah, it's something I find interesting about the snake community itself, because having been involved in the very much entrenched in like dog behavior,
Mm-hmm.
they're all about what new thing did they do? Where did you take them? Did you take them to PetSmart? Did you take them for a walk? Obviously, right? Like, did you take them, you know, dog specific outings to enrich that dog? Are very common conversations that dog people have, but they're less common. And even maybe like for example, I don't necessarily am, if I'm meeting a new reptile person, super like, oh yeah, this is what I do. There's have been like friends of friends they're like, oh, you'll get along. Like, oh, so and so, oh, this is so and so. He has geckos and a king snake, and she has a snake too. Like, they think we're going to be best friends because
Right.
we keep reptiles. And so when I first meet a new reptile person out in the world, I'm not as forthcoming with everything I do because of the negative feedback I get. And I wouldn't be negative to someone in return. So I kind of have to, like, recently we've had someone come over, part of extended family, and was like, oh yeah, I heard you had a snake. Where is it? And it was in the living room. They thought it was a fish tank. They thought this was a fish tank. Because I mean, it looks like a fish tank, but I mean, it's not filled with water. They didn't realize that's where the snake lived.
Right.
And they were like, oh, you're one of those keepers. And I'm like, what does that mean? And then Janeway's, of course, out and interacting. And so we had an interesting conversation about how he keeps his geckos. And I was just kind of like, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. But I knew like we were not going to see eye to eye, and I also don't feel like I need to defend how I keep, and they don't need to feel like they have to defend how they keep. But it was very interesting how non-reptile people think all reptile people are just going to off the bat get along. But I'm not forthcoming right away because of the negative feedback I get. But that's not true in other animal world.
It is true in some. The horse world is one that
Oh,
comes to mind for
you
real
have told
because
me that
I interact
before.
with basically no other horse people because I do choice-based interactions with our horses and cooperative care behaviors. And that's just so, other than like literally three other trainers that I can name off, Shauna Karash, Robin Foster, and I knew I was going to forget her name, but she does the horse clicker training. Other than these three people, um, yeah, that's so alien to horse people that you wouldn't use force, that you wouldn't use dominance, that you wouldn't show the horse who's boss, that you would actually interact with them where they're not restrained and they get to make their own choices. It's just so out of the realm of reality for them that I don't even enjoy engaging with horse people.
Yeah. And this was the same person who was very surprised that I didn't just pull her out for him to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, she'll crawl around eventually. You'll get to see her. But no, I'm not pulling her out just
Yeah.
so you hold her,
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
thank you for the way that you're raising and keeping Janeway. I'm very proud that I was able to help you. Um, I thank Joe Phelan for working with you because I had gotten corn
100%.
snakes from him before, and I was like, I think that he's the person to work with you. Silent Hills Reptiles is also fantastic. And these are people that understand the work that I do, so they're going to understand what my clients want. If you go to them for a corn snake or another species of snake, they aren't going to be surprised at your questions about temperament and behavior and personality, and they're going to understand what you want. And those are the types of breeders that I like to work with and that I like to send my clients to. So I just couldn't be happier that this is all worked out.
Yeah, me too. I'm so happy I found you and the, progressive keeping groups and people who I can have open dialogue with about just what am I doing and how do I do it. And, if it's so funny because people who know me, like my family and close friends, this isn't strange about how I keep Janeway, right? So they're like, of course she's going to bring her snake. Like, of course she's going to bring her snake. And of course she's going to set up a tent and that sort of stuff. So it's nice to be in these groups. Your Patreon group, Facebook group is like one of the best groups, honestly. And everyone's so
Glad to hear
supportive.
that.
So I really am glad that you created that community that we can all engage in and really help each other out, because some people are, can get really stuck and really have really important questions and difficult situations, and that it's a safe place to discuss them, I think is really important.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with how the group behaves. I monitor it super closely, as you guys know, and I try to also like or comment on everything, even if I'm not actively engaging. Although usually if it's a behavior or training question, I usually respond. But sometimes you guys are having great discussions about bioactive or about enrichment items or about other things that I don't feel like I need to chime in. And you guys are all so respectful of each other, even when you do things differently. And I really appreciate that about the group.
And I really appreciate that, because what I often find too is that because I have one snake and because it's a corn snake, I don't necessarily maybe get respected as much as other people in other reptile groups, because I don't have the $1,000 snake and I don't have 20 or 50 or 100 of them. And so I really appreciate that in your group, I'm respected as a keeper of one and of a corn snake. She's not looked down upon because she's a corn snake. And that I devote as much time and energy as I do to her for just a corn snake. I get a lot of she's just a corn snake attitude. And that having one snake is a conscious decision, because I could not keep like another snake the way I keep Janeway, and the upgrades I have planned for her and the things I want to do for her, I can't do that with more than one snake. So I only have one snake. So I made that decision very specifically. So, but I feel like in some groups, one snake is you're not a real reptile keeper.
Well, you can keep one snake well, and you can keep 100 snakes poorly. And if you're the one person keeping the one snake well, look at how much you've learned keeping her and raising her and taking this journey with her. You're far more knowledgeable with your one snake than many keepers I know who have many snakes, because you're
Yeah.
able to dedicate the time to research, to test things out, to observe her behavior, to try things, that you are learning so much more than a single keeper who has 100 snakes and keeps them in drawers and never interacts with them. They're not going to be able to tell me about their personality, about their behavior. They're not going to tell me how to train that species. They're not going to, there's just so much lacking there that I can't even emphasize how much what you've accomplished has taught you more than if you had a ton of snakes and just weren't doing anything with them except feeding them.
Thank you. I really try. And I feel like sometimes in Facebook or sometimes in Instagram, it's like, well, I'm an expert because I have 100. And so like my opinions or advice are less are counted as less because I only have one and she's just a corn snake. Like I had a comment on Instagram, like, well, you can only do that because you have one, or you only have one. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. Like, I don't understand. Like, it was so like, I think they meant it as a negative comment, but I'm like, yeah, it's true. And
I used to have people ask me that in the beginning when I started to share my snake training and behavior. They would say, well, you know, how many snakes do you have? And then when I would tell them, well, I have 90 or whatever it was at that time, I have over 100 now, then they would not say anything because they didn't expect that answer. They didn't expect me to say I have that many snakes in enriched enclosures and that I train that many and that many have opportunities for exercise and that I keep that many in this manner. If that's your life choice, then you're going to make that happen.
yeah, yeah. So I appreciate that in your group, the fact that I only have one snake is not discounted. You know, like my opinions or advice or whatever experience I can share with because I've had Janeway and I've kept her the way I've kept her, you know, that's counted as equal as I know other people in a group like yourself have many snakes and they're all kept, you know, at high standards. And so I just appreciate that because to feel like you have equal footing in a community is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel that everywhere. And just because I only have one, you know what I mean? Like it's so interesting.
It's not logical.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
logical. And I refer people to you in the group. I tell them, contact, Natalia, start a conversation with her because she has a corn snake. And you've done so much with that one corn snake. I feel like you know corn snakes. At least you know the potential that they have.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously some might be anomalous, some are going to be super shy, but in general, Janeway is a typical corn snake if you manage them correctly and with respect and raise them a certain way.
Yeah. I think watching her mind work is so engaging for me that I really like that I can sit back and just watch her be a snake and watch her learn and problem solve. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It
it's a
is
great way
super
to
fun.
engage with them. Yeah, and it's a great way to engage with them without having to hold them. Like there's more ways to enjoy your snake than holding them all the time. Now maybe
There,
you have a PC who loves to be held and is like
right.
puppy dog situation, but maybe your snake isn't, but you can still really enjoy them. I get a lot of enjoyment of just watching her and providing for her and stretching myself, you know.
I do too. I can sit for hours and just watch the snakes, like doing their normal snake behaviors. And
Yeah,
I just like to watch them. And if you can't see your snake and they can't see you, you're not going to get to interact that way.
yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
covered a lot in part one. I think we covered even more in part two. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we wrap up?
I think just thank you for your interest in Janeway and all your help. And I look forward to learning more. And yeah, hopefully I have Janeway for another 20 years and who knows what more I'll learn. So thank you so much.
I hope so too. And you can find Natalia and Janeway the Corn Snake on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's Janeway _the_ corn snake, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can find me at behavioreducation.org or on Patreon at patreon.com/behavioreducation, or you're welcome to email me at behavioreducationllc@gmail.com. Of course, I'm on YouTube. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. So until next time, everybody, please remember to always be kind and love your animals.